For over 2,000 years, historians have told us they know exactly where Julius Caesar crushed the Gauls at Alesia. But what if the world has been worshipping the wrong battlefield? Today, we dive into one of history's biggest unsolved mysteries, to uncover the hidden truth of Alesia and reveal what ancient Rome tried to bury forever. The year is 52 BC, the Roman Republic trembles under internal chaos, and Caesar is desperate for glory. In the heart of Gaul, a young Celtic chieftain named Vercingetorix unites the tribes for one final stand, a stand that will decide the fate of an entire civilization. But as the dust of war settles, something doesn't add up. Ruins don't match the records, maps contradict eyewitnesses. And even today, no one can say for certain where Alesia truly was. Imagine standing on a mist-covered hill in ancient Gaul, the air heavy with the smell of iron and smoke. Below, tens of thousands of warriors gather, the Gauls, fierce and proud, shouting war cries that echo across the valley. They believe this is the moment they will finally break the chains of Rome. But above them, across the ridges, the disciplined lines of Roman legions stand unmoved, silent, and watchful. Between them lies the battlefield that will decide the fate of a continent, Alesia. And yet, for an event that shaped the very soul of Europe, the siege of Alesia remains strangely forgotten, its truth blurred by time and politics. Everyone knows the name Julius Caesar, but few remember the desperation, the human cost, and the strange shadows that linger over this mysterious siege. This was not just another battle. This was the turning point where one civilization died and another was born, a clash so monumental that its echoes still shape the borders, the languages, and even the myths of modern Europe. The year was 52 BC. Rome was tearing itself apart from the inside. The Republic was on the brink of civil war. Senators conspired against generals. Ambition was eating away at the very core of the empire. Julius Caesar needed something extraordinary, a victory that would silence his rivals and make him immortal in the eyes of the people. That opportunity came in the rugged lands of Gaul, where a young and defiant leader named Vercingetorix had risen to challenge Roman rule. Vercingetorix was not just a warrior. He was a visionary. He united scattered tribes that had never agreed on anything before. For the first time in centuries, the Gauls stood together under one banner, determined to drive the Romans out of their homeland. To Caesar, this rebellion was both a threat and a chance. If he could crush it, he would become more than a general. He would become legend. Alesia was where these two worlds collided. But the strange thing about this siege is how much of it doesn't quite fit the clean, glorious story told in Roman writings. Caesar's own account, Commentary de Bello Gallico, paints him as the brilliant tactician who outsmarted a massive enemy through genius and discipline. It's a tale of Roman perfection, of machines, mathematics, and destiny. But beneath those polished words lies something far more chaotic and haunting. The siege began when Vercingetorix and his army took refuge in the fortified hilltop town of Alesia. Caesar surrounded the settlement, cutting off all escape routes. He had around 60,000 soldiers. Inside Alesia, there were more than 80,000 Gauls, along with civilians, men, women, and children trapped behind walls, starving, watching the Roman legions build their prison in real time. The Romans constructed a line of fortifications, walls, ditches, towers, stretching for miles. Then, to protect themselves from the enormous Gallic relief force coming to the rescue, Caesar ordered another wall, facing outward. 2 walls, one inward, one outward, a circle of death enclosing the Gauls and defending against those outside. It was an engineering marvel, but also a horror story. No one had ever seen anything like it. Imagine being one of those trapped inside, seeing the enemy build a cage around you, stone by stone, knowing that every sunrise brought less hope. Food ran out. Thirst set in. Desperation turned to madness. The Gauls sent their women and children out, hoping the Romans would spare them. Caesar refused. They were left to die between the walls, thousands of corpses left as a warning. This was not strategy anymore. This was psychological warfare on a scale the ancient world had never witnessed. But even as Caesar's strategy unfolded, something about the siege doesn't sit right with historians. The numbers, the distances, the terrain, they don't perfectly match his own descriptions. The location identified by modern archaeologists doesn't fully align with the Roman text. It's as if the story was edited, reshaped to glorify Caesar's genius and conceal the inconvenient truths of the battle. Some suggest the real Alesia might have been somewhere else entirely, hidden away, its memory buried because it didn't fit the empire's narrative. And that's what makes this siege so mysterious. It's remembered as Caesar's greatest victory, yet it's also one of the least understood. How could an event that marked the end of Celtic independence fade into obscurity for nearly 2 millennia? Why did it take until the 19th century for archaeologists to even claim they found Alesia's location, and why do so many experts still doubt it today? The siege of Alesia wasn't just a military triumph. It was a rewriting of reality. Caesar needed a victory not just on the battlefield, but in the minds of his people. Every word he wrote, every victory he claimed, helped build his political power in Rome. And when you control the story, you control history. That's how legends are born and how truths get lost. This battle was the end of the Celtic dream, the beginning of Roman domination in Western Europe. But in the shadows of that victory lies something deeper, something hidden beneath centuries of propaganda and forgotten ruins. The Gauls fought for freedom, Caesar fought for immortality, and the land itself kept their secrets. The siege of Alesia wasn't only a war between nations. It was a battle between truth and power, between memory and myth, between what really happened and what we were told to believe. And maybe, just maybe, what we've been told about Alesia is not the whole truth at all. The story of Alesia is often told as a tale of brute strength. But in truth, it was a masterpiece of strategy, a moment when Julius Caesar turned the impossible into reality. The brilliance of what happened on that windswept plateau in 52 BC wasn't just about swords and shields. It was about the mind of a man who could see war like a chessboard and every soldier as a piece in his grand design. As the siege began, Caesar faced a nightmare scenario. His legions were deep in enemy territory, surrounded by tribes who knew the land better than any Roman ever could. Inside the fortress of Alesia, the Gallic leader Vercingetorix had gathered tens of thousands of warriors. They were fortified on high ground with natural defenses that seemed unbreakable, steep slopes, rivers, and walls of wood and stone. Caesar knew a direct assault would be suicide. To attack would mean certain death. To retreat would mean humiliation. And so, in the face of an unwinnable battle, Caesar decided to do the unthinkable. He would trap an entire army in its own fortress. He called his engineers, his surveyors, and his commanders together and laid out his plan. Around Alesia, the Romans began to dig not trenches of defense, but a massive ring of fortifications. Caesar ordered a wall built completely around the Gallic stronghold, stretching for miles in every direction. This was not just a blockade, it was a cage. He called it the circumvallation. It started with trenches, deep ditches lined with sharpened stakes. Behind them, wooden towers rose, spaced at precise intervals. Between those towers, barriers of sharpened logs and hidden pits were laid out to stop any surprise attacks. Every detail was calculated, every line drawn with mathematical precision. The Romans worked day and night, cutting trees, shaping stakes, laying stones. The sound of hammers echoed through the hills. Inside Alesia, the Gauls watched in disbelief. They could not understand what Caesar was building, a prison unlike anything the world had seen. But Caesar was not finished. He knew that Vercingetorix had allies and that reinforcements would soon come. So he did something no commander had ever dared before. He built a second wall, facing outward to protect his legions from attack from the outside. This new wall, the confrontations, would make his position secure from both directions. His army was now trapped between two enemies, the Gauls inside and the Gauls coming to rescue them. To everyone else, it looked like madness. To Caesar, it was genius. Imagine the psychological impact this had on his soldiers. They were not just fighting for Rome. They were constructing their own survival. Behind the outward wall, they could feel the tension building. Every scout brought news that a massive Gallic relief force was on the way. Some accounts suggest that this force may have numbered over 200,000 men. The legions knew they were outnumbered, but they trusted Caesar's design. The walls were their shield, and Caesar's will was their weapon. Caesar's double fortification was not only a tactical move, it was psychological warfare on both sides. To the Gauls trapped inside Alesia, it was despair. To the Gauls outside, it was confusion, and to the Romans, it was discipline made visible. Every wall, every ditch, every spike represented Caesar's control over chaos. Even nature bent to his will. Rivers were redirected to flood trenches, hidden traps were laid under cover of darkness, and watchtowers allowed archers to rain down arrows on anyone who dared to approach. Inside Alesia, Vercingetorix watched his people starve. He sent cavalry out to break the encirclement, but every attempt was crushed. When his messengers finally reached the relief army, hope flared, but by then, Caesar's defenses were complete. The Romans stood behind not one, but two impenetrable lines, ready to face the storm. And then it came, a thunder of hooves and war cries as the Gallic relief force attacked from outside, while Vercingetorix's men charged from within. For days, chaos consumed the battlefield. The Romans fought on two fronts, caught between enemies who outnumbered them several times over. And yet, Caesar's system held, the walls did their job. The towers rained death upon the attackers. Every time the Gauls breached a section, Caesar himself appeared where the fighting was fiercest, his red cloak blazing like a banner of fate. His presence rallied the men, turning exhaustion into fury. The double wall design, once mocked as madness, became the lifeline of Rome. Caesar's ability to anticipate every move, to predict every possibility, saved his army from annihilation. When the dust settled, tens of thousands of Gauls lay dead. Vercingetorix, seeing the futility, rode out on his horse, dressed in full armor, and surrendered himself to Caesar. The scene became immortal, the proud Gallic king kneeling before the Roman general, handing over his sword, the last symbol of Celtic resistance. But the real power of Caesar's plan was not just in his victory, it was in the message it sent. He had turned a hopeless situation into a masterpiece of control and calculation. His double-wall siege at Alesia became the blueprint for Roman engineering and military dominance for centuries. It showed that with enough discipline, precision, and willpower, even the strongest enemy could be made to destroy itself. This was Caesar's master plan, not only to defeat an army but to prove that no wall, no mountain, no rebellion could ever defy Rome's order. And in that cold efficiency, something deeper was revealed about the man himself. Julius Caesar didn't just conquer lands, he conquered the very idea of limitation. For more than 2,000 years, the siege of Alesia has been remembered as the moment Julius Caesar crushed the Gallic resistance, ending centuries of Celtic power in Europe. But behind the pride of Rome's greatest victory lies a riddle that has baffled historians, archaeologists, and even emperors. Where exactly did this monumental event happen? The location of Alesia, the fortress that witnessed the fall of Vercingetorix and the rise of Caesar's legend, has never been proven beyond doubt. What if everything we think we know about it, every map, every monument, every reconstruction, is wrong? The story begins in Caesar's own writings, his commentary De Bello Gallico. In it, he describes Alesia as a hill fort surrounded by rivers and open plains with a large plateau at the center. His description is detailed, too detailed for a man writing on the move during a campaign. He mentions the fortifications he built, the double walls, the trenches, the rivers that encircled the town. For centuries, scholars took these words as absolute truth. After all, they were Caesar's own account. Who would dare question the conqueror of Gaul? But as time passed, the details stopped adding up. For nearly 1,800 years, the location of Alesia was lost. No one could find the fortress, and many believed it had simply vanished, its stones scattered, its memory buried under centuries of war and change. Then, in the mid-19th century, French Emperor Napoleon III, obsessed with reviving the glory of Rome, decided to solve the mystery once and for all. He ordered massive archaeological excavations across France, determined to find the battlefield that had once symbolized Roman genius. In 1861, the discovery of ancient fortifications near a small French village called Alesia seemed to fit the story perfectly. The name itself sounded similar to Alesia. The ruins appeared to match Caesar's descriptions. Napoleon declared victory. Alesia had been found. But the excitement didn't last. From the beginning, something about the discovery felt too convenient. The site fit Caesar's writings, yes, but only if one ignored several major contradictions. The topography of Alesia didn't align perfectly with Caesar's own measurements. The distances between rivers, the elevation of the plateau, the direction of the surrounding hills, none matched his meticulous account. Even more troubling was the scale. Caesar spoke of enormous fortifications spanning dozens of miles. The walls at Alesia were far smaller. If this was truly the site of one of the greatest sieges in Roman history, why did the landscape feel wrong? And so began one of the longest-running debates in archaeological history. For over a century, scholars, soldiers, and explorers have argued over the true location of Alesia. Some point to the artifacts found at Alesia, Roman coins, weapons, and remnants of siege works, as proof that this must be the place. But others see these findings as misleading or even manipulated. After all, Napoleon's empire needed a national myth, a symbol of French resistance and Roman legacy. Declaring Alesia served both political pride and propaganda. But as technology advanced, so did the investigation. Satellite mapping, ground-penetrating radar, and LiDAR scans began to reveal new patterns across France. And one of them, far to the east in the Jura Mountains, started to draw attention. The site, known as Chaux des Crotonais, matched Caesar's descriptions with uncanny precision. It sat on a high plateau surrounded by rivers, with open valleys ideal for the placement of siege walls. More importantly, the distances described in Caesar's text aligned almost perfectly with this terrain. Here, the Romans could have realistically built their double encirclement, a feat almost impossible at the cramped site of Alesia. Modern archaeologists and independent researchers began to re-examine the evidence. Could it be that the official Alesia was chosen for political convenience rather than historical truth? The Chaux des Crotonais site revealed traces of Roman-style fortifications buried under layers of soil, structures that had never been fully excavated. Local legends spoke of ancient battles, of iron and blood left beneath the ground. The deeper researchers dug, the more the puzzle began to shift. Even the name raised questions. Linguists noted that the ancient Celtic term for Alesia might not even be related to Alesia. The Romans could have easily misrecorded or Latinized local names. Across Europe, several ancient hill forts bear names similar to Alesia, as if the term described a type of stronghold rather than a single place. That opens the door to a darker possibility, that the real Alesia wasn't lost by accident, but deliberately erased, its name recycled to confuse future generations. The debate over Alesia's location is not just academic. It's political, national, and emotional. For the French, Alesia is a symbol of their ancient roots of Gallic pride and resistance. To challenge it is to challenge a cornerstone of French history, yet science keeps whispering otherwise. When aerial surveys show that the landscape doesn't match, when excavation data contradicts the narrative, when the rivers run in the wrong direction, how long can the illusion hold? In truth, the question of where Alesia truly stood is more than a matter of geography. It's a question of truth versus tradition, of archaeology versus ideology. Every artifact unearthed, every trench revealed, pulls us closer to understanding what really happened in 52 BC, and farther from the version Caesar and Napoleon wanted the world to believe. Alesia, the battlefield that defined the fall of Gaul, remains a ghost of history, half found, half forgotten, and always just out of reach, hiding its true face beneath the soil of time. Every great mystery in history leaves behind traces, ruins, bones, fragments of weapons, echoes of a past struggle frozen in the soil. But the mystery of Alesia is different. For a battle that was said to have involved hundreds of thousands of warriors, the evidence left behind is strangely thin, as if someone had carefully swept away the proof of what really happened there. Archaeologists have searched for centuries, digging through layers of earth across France and beyond, yet what they find only deepens the confusion. The story of Alesia isn't just about what was discovered. It's about what seems to be missing, the silence in the earth where a roar of history should have been. When Napoleon III declared that Alesia was the true site of Alesia, he expected the ground to confirm Caesar's legend, and for a while it seemed to. Excavations unearthed Roman coins, weapons, and remnants of ditches that could have belonged to Caesar's famous siege lines. But as researchers dug deeper, the pieces stopped fitting together. The artifacts dated to different centuries, some far earlier, some much later than the Battle of 52 BC. Roman pottery was found, yes, but so were items from other unrelated periods. The more they uncovered, the more the ground seemed to whisper a contradiction. This was not the battlefield you are looking for. It's a strange thing. The most decisive battle in the conquest of Gaul should have left behind a vast archaeological footprint. Thousands of soldiers died here, according to Caesar's account. There should have been mass graves, shattered armor, weapons, remnants of fortifications spanning miles. Yet none of it matches the scale described in his writings. The traces found at Alesia are modest, too tidy, too clean. It's as if the landscape was edited after the fact, reshaped to fit a version of history that never quite happened. And the mystery doesn't stop there. When aerial photography became a key tool in archaeology, new patterns began to emerge across France: geometric outlines, buried trenches, traces of ancient structures invisible to the naked eye. At first, these discoveries seemed to confirm Alesia as Alesia, but soon, similar shapes began to appear elsewhere, at sites miles away, each echoing the same Roman engineering style. Could Caesar's siegeworks have stretched farther than anyone imagined? Or had archaeologists been digging in the wrong place entirely? One of the strangest inconsistencies lies in the absence of human remains. For a battle described as a slaughter, with tens of thousands of Gauls killed or captured, there are almost no bones, no mass burials. Some historians claim the Romans cleared the field afterward, burning the bodies or using them as grim warnings. But even so, traces would remain, bones endure. Bronze corrodes slowly, the earth remembers. And yet, the fields around Alesia are silent. This silence has fueled decades of debate. Some believe the evidence vanished through natural erosion or centuries of agriculture. Others think the battlefield lies buried deeper than anyone has dared to dig. But there's a darker theory that evidence was deliberately planted or removed during the 19th century excavations to secure Napoleon's claim. Several early reports mention findings that were never properly catalogued, sketches that disappeared from archives, and maps that changed between editions. It's as if someone, somewhere, wanted the story to end neatly, even if the truth didn't. Meanwhile, in the Jura Mountains, at Chaux, Crotone, and nearby sites, the earth tells a different story. Here, archaeologists have found vast networks of ancient trenches, wooden palisades, and artifacts that match the era of Caesar's campaign more closely than those at Alesia. The topography matches Caesar's description almost perfectly. Even the placement of rivers, slopes, and valleys fits the siege narrative. And yet, these discoveries are often dismissed, minimized, or quietly ignored by official historians. Why? Because acknowledging them would unravel more than one national myth. It would mean admitting that the official Alesia, the one turned into a monument of French heritage, might be a historical illusion. It's not the first time history has hidden the truth to serve those in power. Caesar himself was a master storyteller. He wrote the story of the Gallic Wars not as a record for posterity, but as a political weapon. His accounts were propaganda, carefully written to glorify his victories and justify his ruthless conquest. If exaggerating a battle made him appear invincible, why wouldn't he do it? And if moving the site of that victory made the story more convenient, who would question it 2,000 years later? Even today, when technology gives us eyes beneath the earth, Alesia refuses to reveal itself. The soil holds traces of Roman presence, yes, but not the catastrophe Caesar described. The supposed lines of fortifications at Alesia are too short, too irregular. The metal fragments recovered from the site could belong to any Roman encampment from the same period. And yet, the story endures, carved into monuments and museums, repeated in textbooks and tours. It's as if the myth has become more powerful than the evidence itself. Every spade of dirt, every broken shard, every faint outline in the earth only deepens the mystery. Where are the mass graves? Where are the thousands of discarded weapons? Where are the burned remains of the city that was supposed to have fallen in blood and fire? The answers don't lie in the open, and maybe they never did. What remains clear is that the battlefield of Alesia, wherever it truly was, continues to defy certainty. It is a ghost of a place, half found, half imagined, leaving behind not proof, but absence, not clarity, but questions whispered from beneath the soil. History, as we know it, is often told by the victors, and in the story of Alesia, that victor was Julius Caesar. His words have echoed through centuries, his version carved into stone and repeated in every book about the Roman Empire. But somewhere beneath that towering narrative lies another voice, silenced, buried, and nearly forgotten. The voice of the Gauls, the voice of a people who fought not for empire, but for freedom, for the right to exist in their own land. The story of Alesia is not just Rome's triumph. It is also the tragedy of a people who stood together for the last time under a single banner, led by a man whose name still burns like a symbol of defiance, Vercingetorix. Imagine the world from his eyes. A young noble from the Arverni tribe, born into a land that was as wild as it was beautiful, deep forests, wide rivers, sacred hills. The Gauls were not the barbarians Rome made them out to be. They had art, cities, systems of trade, and a deep spiritual connection with nature. Their druids taught wisdom, their craftsmen shaped gold and iron with unmatched skill, and their warriors carried not just weapons, but pride in their ancestors. Yet to Rome, they were obstacles, tribes to be conquered, lands to be taken, names to be erased. When Caesar invaded Gaul, he didn't just bring war, he brought division. Tribe turned against tribe, old rivalries reignited, and one by one the Gauls fell under Roman control. But Vercingetorix saw what others could not. That unity was the only chance for survival. He rose from the chaos, calling the tribes to join forces, to forget their differences, to fight as one nation. It was a dream larger than any Gaul had dared to imagine before, and for a brief, blazing moment, that dream came alive. The rebellion spread like wildfire. Villages that had once bowed to Rome rose in revolt. Roman outposts burned, supply lines collapsed, and Caesar, the man who had never known defeat, suddenly found himself surrounded by enemies. Vercingetorix used tactics Rome wasn't prepared for. He ordered scorched earth warfare, burning crops, destroying towns, denying the legions food and shelter. He fought not by strength, but by patience, forcing the invaders into starvation. For a time, it worked. Caesar's army was trapped in a land that refused to feed them. The Gauls believed the gods were on their side, but fate turned at Alesia. Vercingetorix chose the fortified hilltop town as his stronghold, believing its walls and terrain would protect his people. When Caesar arrived, the two leaders faced each other for the first time, one fighting for glory, the other for survival. The Gauls watched as the Romans began to build their strange double walls, surrounding them like a tightening noose. Still, they did not lose hope. Vercingetorix sent riders to summon reinforcements from across Gaul. The message was clear: hold the fortress and help will come. Inside the walls, food began to run out. Days turned into weeks, the air thick with despair. The women and children wept, the warriors grew restless, and yet their leaders stood tall. Vercingetorix promised them salvation, swore that the armies of Gaul were coming. And then, one morning, the earth trembled. On the horizon, the Gallic relief force appeared, a sea of banners, thousands upon thousands of warriors answering his call. The people of Alesia cheered, their hope reborn. For the first time in history, nearly all the tribes of Gaul stood united. The battle that followed was chaos beyond imagination. The Gauls attacked from both sides, the relief army from the outside, Vercingetorix's men from within. Arrows darkened the sky. The clash of iron and screams of the dying filled the air. For hours, victory seemed within reach. But Caesar's defenses, built with cold precision, held firm. When the outer attack began to falter, panic spread. The Gauls broke ranks. The Romans counterattacked. And slowly, the great alliance began to crumble. Inside Alesia, the dream of freedom collapsed. The relief force retreated, leaving Vercingetorix and his people trapped once more. He could have fled, could have escaped into the mountains. But he didn't. Instead, he made a decision that would turn him into legend. He gathered his generals and told them the fight was over. He would surrender himself to save his people from slaughter. The next morning, he rode out of the gates alone, dressed in full armor, his horse gleaming in the dawn light. Before Caesar, he dismounted, threw down his weapons, and knelt. To Rome, it was the ultimate image of conquest, the barbarian king submitting to civilization. But to the Gauls, it was something far greater. It was sacrifice, a final act of dignity in defeat. The man who had united a nation gave himself up so that others might live. Caesar paraded him through Rome as a trophy, but the symbol refused to die. Even after his execution years later, the name Vercingetorix became a whisper of pride across the Celtic lands, the warrior who stood against an empire. For the Romans, Alesia was the end of the Gallic wars. For the Gauls, it was the beginning of memory, the point where their history became legend. Their culture did not vanish overnight. It lived on in language, in art, in the stories told around fires in the dark forests of Europe. Though Rome claimed victory, the heart of the Gauls endured in the myths of kings and heroes that would one day inspire nations yet unborn. The Celtic side of Alesia is not written in stone, but in the spirit of resistance itself, a spirit that refuses to be conquered. No matter how many centuries pass for 2,000 years, the story of Alesia has been sealed inside the pages of history, preserved by those who claim to know its truth. Julius Caesar's words became the foundation upon which the tale was built, the siege, the surrender, the triumph. But history is never just what is written. It is also what has been erased, buried, or deliberately left unsaid. And now, in our modern age, as technology digs deeper into the earth and new eyes look beyond the myths, the old walls of Caesar's story are beginning to crack. Beneath them, something unexpected is emerging, a version of Alesia that Rome never intended us to find. It starts with a simple question: what if the official history was wrong? What if Alesia, as we've been taught to believe it existed, was not just misplaced on the map, but misunderstood in meaning? When archaeologists began revisiting the ancient records, comparing Caesar's meticulous descriptions with satellite imagery and modern terrain analysis, the results were startling. The distances between rivers, the height of the surrounding hills, the expanse required for 2 massive rings of fortifications, they didn't align with the Vercingetorix. In fact, the more technology advanced, the more that once certain location began to fall apart. Researchers turned their attention to new sites, and suddenly, buried beneath forests and farmland, they began to find patterns, faint lines in the soil that matched the Roman engineering Caesar described in his writings. Circular structures, long ditches, symmetrical formations invisible from the ground but clear from above. In places like Chaux de Crotone, the landscape itself told a story that Caesar's pen never fully revealed. The hilltop was surrounded by not one but 2 natural valleys, perfectly fitting his narrative of double encirclement. Streams crossed the plains exactly where he said they would. For the first time, the myth of Alesia began to tremble under the weight of evidence. But it wasn't just the terrain. It was the silence that followed every discovery. Researchers who challenged the established version found themselves ignored, their studies dismissed, their findings quietly buried under bureaucratic dust. The official institutions clung to Vercingetorix as if to move Alesia would mean moving the foundation of history itself. After all, the site had become a symbol, a monument to French pride, Roman glory, and national identity. To question it was not only to challenge Caesar, but centuries of storytelling that built nations around his legend. Still, the earth refuses to lie forever. Excavations at alternative sites revealed signs of massive ancient fortifications, trenches, iron fragments, remains of wooden stakes identical to those Caesar's engineers would have used. Some findings were so compelling that even skeptical scholars began to wonder if the truth had been hidden in plain sight. The more layers peeled away, the clearer it became that the story of Alesia was more than a battle. It was a carefully constructed narrative designed to serve power. Consider this: Caesar wrote his commentaries on the Gallic War not as an impartial record but as political propaganda. He needed to convince the Senate and the people of Rome that his conquests were justified, his victories flawless, and his leadership divine. What better way to do that than to craft a siege so perfect, so mathematically precise, that it could only have been led by a genius? Yet, when his writings are compared with physical evidence, the inconsistencies multiply. The distances he lists are impossible to achieve in the terrain of Alesia. The rivers flow in the wrong direction. The scale of his encirclement far exceeds the available space. It's as though the battle he described was part truth, part theater, an idealized version of war written by its own hero. And then there is the mystery of what came after. Vercingetorix's surrender was supposed to mark the end of Celtic resistance, yet Roman records from the years that followed still mention uprisings and skirmishes in the same regions. If Alesia was truly the final defeat, why did these revolts persist? Some historians now believe Caesar exaggerated his victory, claiming total dominance where he had only achieved temporary control. A convenient ending for his book and a powerful message for his enemies in Rome. Modern technology has become the new historian. LiDAR scans reveal ghost structures beneath the surface. Ground-penetrating radar exposes patterns long erased by time. Digital elevation models recreate the landscape of ancient Gaul in ways no human eye could have seen before. And what they reveal is stunning: traces of vast fortifications, intricate ditches, and encampments spread across regions Caesar never mentioned. Each new discovery raises the same haunting question: were we ever meant to find the real Alesia? Or was its true location intentionally concealed to protect a political myth that began 2 millennia ago? Some experts suggest that after the battle, the Romans themselves may have dismantled the original site, erasing evidence to control the narrative. Others argue that later civilizations reused the materials, stones, and land, unknowingly burying history under their own. Whatever the cause, one thing remains certain: the truth of Alesia has never stopped shifting. It is a puzzle with missing pieces, each one scattered across time, each waiting for someone brave enough to question what has always been accepted. And that's the beauty of uncovering hidden history. Every new discovery doesn't just rewrite the past. It redefines how we understand power, propaganda, and human memory. Alesia was not merely a battle of armies, it was a battle of stories. Caesar may have won the war, but the Gauls, the land, and even time itself have been whispering a different version ever since. The truth isn't lost. It's just waiting for the right eyes to see it, the right hands to unearth it, and the right voices to tell it again. The story of Alesia is more than a battle. It is a tapestry of ambition, courage, and mystery woven across time. On one side stood Julius Caesar, a man whose brilliance and ruthlessness reshaped Europe and whose words have echoed through millennia. On the other stood Vercingetorix and the United Gauls, warriors fighting not for empire, but for freedom, for their homeland, and for the memory of their people. Yet, what we've long believed about this legendary siege, its location, its scale, its very details, may have been shaped as much by politics, myth, and propaganda as by fact. Archaeology, technology, and modern research continue to peel back the layers, revealing a story far more complex than the polished narrative Caesar left behind. The battlefield may not be where textbooks say it is. The siege may not have unfolded exactly as written. And the truth of the Gauls' courage, sacrifice, and resistance has been nearly buried beneath centuries of Roman storytelling. Every trench unearthed, every artifact analyzed, every LiDAR scan of the terrain brings us closer to understanding the real Alesia, a place of both triumph and tragedy, of strategy and human struggle, of history and mystery intertwined. Ultimately, Alesia is a reminder that history is never static. What we accept as fact today may be questioned tomorrow, and what was hidden for centuries can emerge with startling clarity when we dare to look beyond the surface. The legacy of this mysterious battlefield is not just the fall of the Gauls or the rise of Caesar, but the enduring power of inquiry, the courage to question, to explore, and to uncover the truths that time itself tried to hide. Alesia is not just a story of victory. It is a story of discovery, of secrets waiting patiently beneath the soil, of voices from the past longing to be heard, and of the eternal dance between history as it was written and history as it truly happened.